Welcome to The Definitive Wrap, where we report the truth about American exceptionalism. We love our flag, we love our country, and we believe in America. The Definitive Wrap, where we respect people of faith, the men and women in blue, and our support for Israel. And now, your host, Bela Seabrow, on The Definitive Wrap.
Hello, and welcome to The Definitive Wrap. I am Bela Seabrow. Thank you to Five Towns Central for hosting this show. We have a very special episode on The Definitive Wrap with our show's Israel correspondent, Barry Shaw. Barry is also Israel's International Public Diplomacy Director at the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies, as you could see in his banner. He regularly contributes to various media outlets. Barry has been a staunch defender of Israel in the public diplomacy arena for decades and has initiated the creation of several pro-Israel grassroots groups. He has a keen following of tens of thousands of people globally, and he's the author of Israel Reclaiming the Narrative, Fighting Hamas, BDS and Anti-Semitism, and his most recent book, BDS for Idiots, which employs ridicule as a new method of countering BDS activists and disclaiming their slander against Israel with facts and humor. As always, Barry gives a full account of details not heard anywhere else. As we know, mainstream media does not necessarily cover everything, and Barry always fascinates our viewers and listeners with facts not heard anywhere else. Barry, welcome to The Definitive Wrap.
Thank you, Bela. Thanks for having me.
Some interesting developments are happening in the U.S. diplomacy. The Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration are working together toward a shared goal of taking a step forward in the Middle East. And that is the latest ceasefire effort. The fact is that President-elect Donald Trump has repeatedly warned that if the hostages captured from Israel by Hamas-led militants on October 7, 2023, and held in Gaza are not released by his inauguration, there would be, quote-unquote, hell to pay. Barry, realistically, what would a deal look like?
Okay, well, I can tell you the terms because I've got them printed out as we're talking, you and I. And as we're talking, we're waiting for approval from Hamas, which is expected to be in by the time this goes out. So the terms that we have it is here. So I want to be accurate.
Yes.
The first phase of the agreement, supposed to be a two-phase agreement, is expected to last for about 42 days. Approximately 30 live Israeli hostages, probably could go up to 33. The number's not certain right now. And they will include women, children, adults. The sick and female soldiers will be released. In exchange, Israel will release hundreds of Palestinian terrorists imprisoned in Israel, of course, including those sentenced to heavy life sentences. This is a matter of a major concern for the Israeli public.
Right.
Increased aid will be brought into the Gaza Strip, probably hundreds of trucks a day, and the process of rebuilding the Strip will begin. I really don't see this happening in 42 days because of the chaos that's going on and the untrustful behavior of Hamas. The third thing is the IDF will withdraw from points of the Philadelphia corridor.
Mm-hmm.
As your viewers should know, the Philadelphia corridor is the connected to the Egyptian borders, and this is where there are underground tunnels and everything.
Thank you for giving this very important detail to our audience that may not know. Thank you.
Withdrawing from that because it simply opens up the floodgates for weapons and money and things like that for Hamas before the deal is completed. So I'm not quite sure how they're going to implement that. And that could be a matter of Hamas would go so far and say no further. There's this as well. Or as in the north of the Gaza Strip, a certain return of Gazans to the northern Gaza Strip will be allowed. perhaps subject to certain conditions, because when you talk about moving the population back, you're moving Hamas back as well.
Right.
And unless the IDF can filter that and make sure people coming through are not Hamas people, even women and kids carrying weapons, etc., this goes on, by the way. The innocents in Gaza have proven to be not quite so innocent. We may have time to cover it, but I've covered it on other shows as well.
Yes.
Now, the other thing is that item 4, the end of war will not be declared in the first phase of the deal. This is a point that Israel insisted on, by the way. Declaration of the end of war wouldn't come until the end of the second phase, when the remaining living hostages will be released in exchange for serious terrorists. There's disputes on whether people like the mass murderers will be included in this deal and where they will go to. The fifth phase is during the first phase of the ceasefire, negotiations will begin on the second phase. And this is where things have always fallen down with Hamas, because you go so far and then they suddenly back off and make preconditions which Israel won't accept. So we've got to be careful of what we call the fifth phase of the stage. Now, this phase will include, or should include, the release of all the hostages and a declaration of the end of war. Now, there's supposed to be the end of the release of all the hostages should be the dead hostages and also the living hostages. And I have to tell you and your listeners, we do not know how many living hostages there are.
Exactly.
And how many dead hostages there are. This is a fearful thing. Let me go back and say that in the first phase, where some of the females are coming out, what happens if all the females do not come out? Do we have to continue? Do we hold Hamas for account and say we don't progress until these people are missing? There's grave concern over here of what fate of some of the female hostages. Hamas might claim that these are not in the hands of Hamas operators, because there are things that might be going on, Bila, that may be traumatic for your viewers to consider. But I just want to go back and say that a couple of months ago, and I don't know whether this was covered in America, but a couple of months ago, the IDF forces managed to extract with some people from abroad, I can't go into too many details, a 5-year-old woman. She was a Yazidi woman. I don't know if this was covered, but it comes to the fate of our female hostages. This Yazidi woman was taken about 12, 14, 15 years ago when she was 13 years old or something like that, from Iraq, where the Yazidis were captured by ISIS.
That's right.
And she was taken as a sex bride. And when the person who took her was fed up of her, he sold her to another ISIS operator who, listen to this, took her into the Gaza Strip through the Philadelphia corridor. And she had been exchanged from this guy when he was fed up of her to somebody else. And during that period, she gave birth to two children. And she was somehow extracted, and we haven't had the details, by the IDF and one or two operators from outside of Israel and taken out. Horrendous story. She was relieved to come out, and it was the IDF that brought her out. But I put it to you, this could be something like the fate that some of our girls have been receiving at the hands of Hamas. And we are expecting some quite traumatic stories in the months to come if they are included in the living. This is the point. There's a lot of contentious deal here. And there is, a deep suspicion that whether this full part of this agreement, i.e. releasing all the hostages and a ceasefire, will actually reach its conclusion. And this is a thing that you and I could cover maybe some in some other program, but at least
Right.
your followers have heard it here first, right? Now, like I said, prepare also for what you can see as well is once you know that we find that the Hamas have agreed, and I don't know what it's going to be before or afterwards. I think you and I are going to see some what I call celebratory lapse of honor by, for instance, the Biden administration about how they pulled off this wonderful hostage thing before leaving office,
Right.
blah blah blah, getting all the credit, etc. But you know, the problem about Israel and the mood in Israel is the majority of Israel obviously want the hostages released, but the terms of the deal seems to leave Hamas in place for when we reach and if we reach the end of war. In other words, what we fought and died for was supposed to be victory. That what we
Right.
fought and died for, and we had hundreds of soldiers being killed and badly injured, was that this war was to eradicate the Hamas plague that we've known for decades. Yes, actually decades. That committed the worst atrocity on Jews since the Holocaust.
No.
And then for us to walk away at the end of a conflict and Hamas is still alive and possibly not killing, but prepared to kill again in the future, is for a lot of Israelis totally unacceptable. But it could be this deal is being done in order to placate not just the Biden administration, but it might have been something that's been arranged with the incoming President Trump. And it might well be that our Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is being clearing the decks to do something with the approval or with the cooperation of the
Right.
United States when it comes to, for instance, Iran. So we do not understand why the terms of this deal, and I followed again a lot of the TV channels yesterday diligently in preparations for being on here with you, and the mood of the country is we're not really happy with this. We may reluctantly accept it. We don't believe it's going to last. We're sure because it's Hamas, things are going to be breaking down. We
You
don't
know,
believe,
we know that Hamas is not to be trusted. We know that, right?
yeah,
The thing
right.
is that, and this is what I keep thinking, and it goes over in my mind a lot. That when Hamas claims that they don't know how many hostages are alive, right? That's what they're saying. They don't know how many hostages are alive. So, in all seriousness, they're playing a sick mind game. So, don't you think that they want Israel to accept as many dead hostages as possible so that they can advance their bargaining position for the next phase, whatever that is?
Right, but the next phase starts to happen 42 days, and 42 days we're already towards the end of February, right? And
Right.
so you have a sort of a limbo period over here, where Hamas are not really committed within that 42 days. Things can happen, but they could drag it out for the full 42 days. You know, they're excellent at psychological warfare. So these are the traumas going to go on. The trauma's going to go on when we get the list of 30 or 33 hostages to be released. Are they the only living ones? Are there other living ones as well, or is everybody else dead? There's also an air of uncertainty here. And considering there supposed to be, the numbers have been reduced, Bila, to 98 hostages, either alive or dead.
Yeah.
Held by Hamas or other people in the Gaza Strip. When I keep saying other people, I also want your viewers to understand that on the 7th of September, when we had this mass invasion, the mass invasion was 3,000 Nukba Hamas Islamic Jihad Palestinian terrorists. But that wasn't all. You should realize there were another 3,000 people that invaded into Israel. And they were the innocent civilians that your
Yes.
media and
Yes.
your
Yeah.
maybe the Biden administration was saying, you know, the poor innocent Palestinians. 3,000 of them followed their armed terrorists into
Hmm.
Israel to do the looting and hostage taking and things like this as well. And when Hamas came back, I don't know if you saw it in America, but we saw scenes of celebratory crowds as if, somebody had just won the Super Bowl and bringing the trophies back, to their home state or whatever. So this nonsense about, there's Hamas on the one hand and they're innocent for Palestinians on the other. I have been banging on this for a year or more. The innocent Palestinians are innocents of the Germans who weren't in uniform of the Nazis during World War II. They were totally committed to the aims of the Nazis and to Hitler in World War II. And all of the Gaza Strip, the Palestinians over there, and the Palestinians living under the Palestinian Authority are fully behind Hamas.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is something you've got to be aware of. And they also participated in the metropolis, the terror metropolis of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Who do you think built the tunnels, the underground tunnels? Who was involved in the weapons manufacturing factories? Who was involved in all sorts of the training and the arming? Who were they doing all the bureaucracy and the things like this for and being paid for by Hamas out of the money flowing in from abroad? It was the so-called innocent population.
Yeah. This is not just about the 1,000 murderers that Israel will release, but this deal will be Hamas's ticket to indoctrinate as many new fighters to kill Israelis. That's their end goal, kill as many Israelis as possible. Not only that, but we know that Hamas has no respect for human life, period. They welcome death. They will sacrifice every Gazan if they have to. So the question, and people are not happy about this deal. The question is, do you think this is a surrender deal?
No, a lot of the Israelis are taking this deal on suffrage because we wanted an all-out victory, so we could say never again so far as Hamas is concerned. I mean, if you live whatever is left of Hamas, I don't know how many fighters they have left, and we go out for sure, for absolute sure, that we'll be repeating this in another 4, 5, 6 years' time. So, what have our people died for? If we're exposing ourselves as, and actually the Hamas look on this as a victory. Hamas looks on this as a victory. And quite frankly, they will be announcing it as a victory. And you will see a lot of the celebrations going on also in the streets and on the campuses of America as well.
That's when we have to worry. When Hamas celebrates, that's when we worry.
Right. They won't look at it as a defeat because they will come out. If they reach this end of war thing, you're going to be seeing some of the Hamas leaders and the Hamas terrorists coming out from under the ground, giving the V sign and everything, and they will be celebrated as heroes.
Right.
Martyrdom is part of their DNA, and they, fight to die. Even they will die to the last person in Gaza, because martyrdom is part of the indoctrination. Don't forget. The Hamas terrorists, the Nukba terrorists, the Islamic Jihad terrorists, the ISIS terrorists in Gaza were all indoctrinated at the same schools as everybody else in Gaza, in the same mosques as everybody else in Gaza, in the same local Hamas media as everybody else in Gaza. Just like you had the indoctrination going on, as I said, in Germany during World War II.
Right.
They are all indoctrinated. They all went to the throne process. This is why we had the situation, if people can go back to the videos that we saw from the 7th of September, where we saw one, for instance, of one young terrorist who was phoning his parents from the phone of a girl he had murdered with blood on his hands. And he told his father, I have the blood of 10 Jews on my hand. I'm phoning you on the phone of one of the girls that I killed. Are you proud of your son? And the father could be heard saying, Allah Akbar. And said, okay, let me tell it to mother, give me mother, and repeated it the same and repeated it to his brother and his sister. This isn't me making this up.
Oh
The
yeah,
video
yeah.
out there during the 42
I've,
minutes of
yeah,
horror.
I've actually watched documentaries of pregnant women, pregnant Palestinian women, who said that they hope the child they're carrying will martyr itself. I mean, this is what we're talking about here.
Yes, exactly. So, we're coming in for a very difficult period, and we've been
Yes,
through an
it's
awful
it's
year,
difficult,
year and a
and
quarter.
it's scary because it's just so uncertain.
Right. So I don't know how we go forward. Assuming this thing comes to an end, it frees things up. At least we can get our soldiers out of Gaza and yet do some sort of preparedness around the borders of Gaza. And then maybe we can turn our attention to dealing with Iran, because Iran has to be dealt with.
In your opinion, how likely is the deal to succeed?
Unlikely. Out of 10, I would say 3%, 4% likely out of 10 to succeed, simply because Hamas can't be trusted.
So what are we looking at, in your opinion? What are we looking at?
We tried it before. We could have had a deal a long time ago where they did release a larger number of people, but they broke it before the second stage. I think they'll play out the 42 days and then ask for another week or so, and start making excuses. They can't find all the bodies or the other people that they're looking for, etc., simply to drag it out, simply to do the psychological warfare until Israel says enough is enough. There's also internal arguments because, as I mentioned, if one of the conditions, and this is the one things that I couldn't understand why it was included, that we have to move away from this Philadelphia corridor,
Right.
which is a clear giveaway. Why should these Hamas terrorists be worried about Israeli units being stationed at the tunnel exits from Egypt? Surely Egypt should be making sure that it's blocked at their end, but Egypt has been making a fortune out of the smuggling trade that's going on between Egypt and the Gaza Strip and Hamas as well. Why was this at all part of the conditions? Why was it included? I've no idea. Israel, no idea. Some people in our security, if not the prime minister, has to give us an explanation. Why was Philadelphia corridor included in this? Was this something that was insisted on by the Biden administration? I mean, you have to look back at what happened while the war was going on. We were getting instructions from the Biden administration. I'm not talking about just Jake Sullivan and Blinken. I was talking about from President Biden himself and even from Kamala Harris. Don't go in, whatever you do, don't go into Khan Yunis. And we did. And we killed hundreds, if not thousands, of terrorists there. Then don't go into Rafah. Do you remember even this new general in America called Kamala Harris was telling the IDF and the prime minister, don't you dare go into Rafah.
Yes.
And we ignored her, and we ignored your president. And what happened? We rescued 3 hostages. One was a girl, and we also killed Sinwar in Rafah.
Yep.
So we're doing this despite the U.S. administration. They even threatened and actually stopped giving us arms because we didn't listen to them. They told us not to go to the Philadelphia corridor. And then we found tunnels we weren't aware of, massive tunnels that you could drive trucks through. We could drive rockets through, and everything that they needed over there. The other lie they tell you is that, we prevented humanitarian supplies going through into Gaza.
Yes.
One of the things I've been doing, Bila, one of the many things I've been doing is defying the lies that you hear both from your administration and from your media. It wasn't that Israel was stopping supplies going through. Yes, they could have done it. We could have starved them and put the pressure on the population to turn against Hamas because they would be in desperate need of that. But we didn't. And if there was a slowdown in aid, it wasn't because we weren't supplying it, because there were trucks on the border. It was simply because the United Nations and the other humanitarian aid organization were so totally incompetent, they weren't able to deal with the flow of aid. Now, one of the things I was doing on a regular basis, and I need your viewers for this,
Sure.
if you go to my social media pages, whether it's Telegram or Facebook or Twitter, I've been putting on virtually on a daily basis what we call the COGAT report. COGAT, I have to tell your listeners, is the COGAT, which is the official humanitarian aid organization for Israel. And they have been releasing in English and Hebrew and Arabic virtually on a daily basis a full report of all the aid and the other things we've been doing in Gaza for the population in Gaza. You will be staggered by the amount of tonnage of aid that's going in, because it defies what you're hearing on your media and some of your officials like Blinken, which isn't true. And therefore, I need, and I beg some of your viewers and your listeners and your followers to go to Barishor, The View from Israel, on my social media pages and copy paste the COGAT reports. This list of everything that goes in, whether it's food, whether it's fuel, whether it's water, whether it's medical supplies, whether it's tents, whether it's sheeting, whatever it is for the population. And when we move the population, we are not committing genocide by famine. We're moving them to take them out of harm's way.
Right.
This is something that our armies are supposed to do. And certainly Israel is doing far more than even by US forces or British forces, as proved by John Edwards, who is somebody from West Point, who is a world expert on urban warfare, and Colonel Richard Kemp. Israel has conducted this campaign more morally, more correctly than any other army in military history. Not me saying so, but also one of the leading experts from the United States and from the British forces as well. And we need your help to get this message and to defy your media. If you see your false media giving out these false stories,
we all have to work together.
With facts and information, we need your help.
What is the mood in Israel? You're in Israel, I'm in America, but I rely on the news. I rely on the media, and of course on your accurate commentaries. But what is the general mood on the streets of Israel?
It's I want to tell you right now, it's one of utter determination. Let me put it this way. We have been fighting a war here, a multi-front war going on. Now, we've had multi-front wars in the past. We had it even in 1948, where we had to set back for Arab armies. We had it again in the Yom Kippur War, the 6-day war as well, where we were fighting on battlefields against regular armies, including with tanks and airplanes as well. This time, we found ourselves fighting a multi-front war against guerrilla warfare from the north, from the south, from the east, from the Houthis in Yemen, from Iran itself. And we get a situation here of terrorist organization where you would say that guerrilla warfare coming out of the ground, but also guerrilla organizations like, the sandal-footed peasants from Yemen, firing the most ballistic and sophisticated and precision weapons at us as well. There's never been a war like this, where you've not even the Viet Cong in the United States forces had to deal with in Vietnam. But we've been having this both from Hamas and from Hezbollah and from the Houthis and from Iran, also coming out of the West Bank and also coming over from Iraq as well. So this is a multi-front war. But I want to tell you, what's about the spirit that Israel has gone through right now. And we've never had a war that's gone on for a year and a quarter.
Right.
This has been extraordinary. And what I have to tell you is there may be questions about the current leadership in Israel, but one thing I can tell you, Bila, is this. The redeeming factor of Israel has been our young people. Our young people, even on the 7th of October, actually volunteered to go down to the south in order to fight the terrorists.
Yes.
They went down there with nothing, and they went there waiting for the army to give them the arms and they have been fighting every day since.
We have much to be proud of.
not doing it begrudgingly, but they have doing it because they have been raised on the principle of never again. Masada
Right.
will not fall again. And the reason they've kept it going for 15 months and counting is because they know we have to, or they have to eradicate this enemy, because when they say they're going to come back and do it again and again and again, they're going to do it. And I want to tell you that these young people are going to be our leaders in the future.
Mm-hmm.
These
Oh,
young
yeah.
people, I will put them up against the 18, 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds from America, in Britain and Australia and other places. They
Yes.
have been tested like no young generation before, and they've come it through it with courage and with flying colors. And these people have really taken it upon their soldiers, and we see them on Israeli television. Some of them have been injured. Some of them had friends killed in front of them. Some of them also have been injured themselves. And they said they want to get involved and make Israel a far better, stronger place to live. So the Israeli leadership in the next decade or so are going to be even more brilliant than the ones we've had up till now.
Yes. Yes. All right, we're coming to the end of the show. Thank you, Barry. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. Here is what we always have to remember, that whatever happens, Israel will always remain standing, because Am Yisrael Chai.
And shalom, and thank you, Bila, for all you're doing, and also your viewers. Help us give out the information that your media won't cover, that your politicians won't be covering. We have a feeling over here that the change of leadership in America is going to be more positive for Israel. Let's pray that that's true.
Thank you so much. Shalom.
Thanks for listening to The Definitive Wrap with your host, Bela Seabrow. Be sure to tell your family and friends they also can catch The Definitive Wrap on Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, and your favorite streaming service. See you next time on The Definitive Wrap.